What's up? Welcome back to the DreamMason Podcast. I am your host, Alex Terranova. And as this podcast has been going, we're mixing it up these days. I really have been using this as any way I can provide value. That's what this podcast is really for now. So today, I have a really good friend, a colleague. He's actually been on this podcast, a long time ago. And he's going to join us. You might be able to see him depending on how you're watching, but I'm gonna have him introduce himself in a minute. We wanted to have a conversation about men, about the experience of being a man, about the experience of being women or partners of men. And this isn't like a pity men hour because we don't need that, but it's actually let's take a deeper look and how do we empower men. Look, if we look at the world, it's not going well for all of us, and it's not going well for men. And often men aren't doing anything to have that narrative change. So we want to talk about this. We're going to dive in from some different angles. And one of the things that inspired this is we have created the Alchemy of Men retreat. You may have heard me talk about this. You may have seen it on social media. If you go to the dreammason.com/alchemy of men, you can find out more about the Alchemy of Men retreat, which is happening in October from the 27th until the 30th. It's in Idaho on like 50 acres in what like a cabin meets a mansion. It is going to be epic. It is going to change what the experience of being a man is like for the men that attend and for the people that are important to them. Let me have my guest, Bob Conlin. Bob, what's up, man? I want you to just tell people who you are, and then just quickly tell us how excited you are about this retreat.
Yeah, sure, man. So good to be here again. Yeah, I think it's been like, God, 3 or 4 years. I think we were just like babies. We barely knew each other back then. We were trying to figure who each other were out. But yeah, it's good to be here and good to be with you. And yeah, so my name is Bob Conlin. I am a life love leadership coach. I'm a professional certified coach with the International Coach Federation. I'm an author, father. That's the big job there. The father, husband to an incredible, powerful, beautiful, gorgeous woman. And yeah, I serve on a couple nonprofits. I love leadership. I love challenging myself. I love getting uncomfortable in service of my own growth. The things that I'm committed to in life is really just to make a difference for other people and to help them achieve the success they know that they're capable of achieving, and learning to grow and love and learn all along the way. So yeah, man, this retreat, dude, I'm so pumped for it. It's so cool to have an idea and then put small things in place to have it realized, and then it's happening, right? It's like literally unfolding before our eyes. And the thing I'm most present to is saying yes to something before you know the how, or being 100% effing committed to something before you know the how or how it's going to look or whatever. And I think that's the cool thing that happened in our partnership, was like we were a total yes for this experience, not knowing where it was going to be, not knowing what it was going to look like, and just taking small daily actions essentially, and bringing this thing to life. And I think back, like, if I had something like this container, like something like this retreat's going to be like 5, 10, 15, hell, 30 years ago, it would have so supported me in my own growth and development. Like, no one taught me what it was to be a man. That conversation wasn't happening. My father died when I was very young. I was raised by my mother. I had pretty much an absent brother in the household. And like, I learned basically on my own. I learned from the neighborhood kids, what it meant to be a man. And that was like, oh, you got to smoke and you got to listen to heavy metal, and that's how you're cool, and that's how you become a man. And while it was fun, it didn't really support my growth and really understanding. And I think now, as a father, it's even more critical and more important to me to be able to teach my son, that he gets to define what that means for him. And he has an older man in his life that's going to help support him in discovering what that is.
I love that you just brought the yes. Well, there's a few things you brought, but the yes before how I want to talk about first, because I don't know about you, and I actually do know because we talk about this all the time.
Mhm.
we hear this constantly. People are like, well, I have to figure this out before I do that, or I have to make that money before I can do that, or I have to get in shape before I do that, or I have to there's always these like made up obstacles that we decide have to come before the things that we want. And this retreat exists, and our businesses exist, our relationships with our partners exist because we're luckily and open to changing our lives and getting support. But we said yes to the idea of, no, you actually have to choose the thing that you want, and then you figure out the how. You don't, the how thing just stops us, right? If you and I were trying to figure out how we're going to do this, then we're like, oh man, the house costs this much money, the chef costs this much money, blah, blah, blah. We're just going to get stuck in all those challenging things, and then we give up. But what did we do? We were like, all right, let's take a moment in time and just envision what this idea is. So we took a couple of weeks and we basically dreamt up and did some research, right? We didn't just like make it all up in our head. We did some research, we brainstormed, we talked to people we knew, we looked at our clients that are men, and then we're like, all right, this is what we're doing. And then we booked a house, we set the dates, and now we got to figure out all the logistics, all the people. And the funny thing is, once we booked the house and set the dates, it was like everything,
boom, 4 people were in like 2 days.
People were in immediately. People want to be in. Chefs want to work with it. Like all the things just find a way to work out. And I'm not saying that every step of the way there will be challenges, but it all makes it possible. We could do this with anything. I often use with my clients the idea of like an iPhone. Steve Jobs had this, like, we're going to make this thing. When he originally said it, they didn't know how. They didn't have it all figured out. But he had to like hold up this vision and go, we're going to make this thing. And we're going to make it by this date. And then everybody got on board with, now we got to figure out how to do it. Now we got to figure out how to source the material, how we make the technology, how we're going to sell it, how we're going to market it. But that all came because they decided to do something first.
Right. And that's like a radical way of approaching anything. Like we're not taught that, or we don't learn it that way. We have to like play it safe. We have to mitigate risk. We have to like fix, manage, and control the whole process so nothing bad can happen, or that, we're going to make sure that the outcome is achieved. And there's so much less potential and possibility. And like you said, from that place, we tend to give up quite a bit because we'll never have it figured out or have it completely safe or have it make sense, right? It's sticking with the vision and the choice to decide that you actually want to create this experience. And I think, like, how did we get there? Right? How did we learn that that's a way that you could approach something, is actually commit first, then figure it out? Like that's kind of radical, man.
A little crazy too, right? Because you have to step into something,
right?
And in a way, it's like love, right? You have to actually be willing to get your heart broken or get totally crushed, right? The same thing, by saying yes, you're actually being braver and more courageous because you're stepping into something, and you could totally get your butt kicked. But the other way, you might not ever get your butt kicked, you might never get your heart broken, you might never fail or lose, but you actually probably never make anything happen because you're actually not willing to step over that imaginary line.
Right. You'll actually never get the thing that you yearn for, that you actually want.
So you have like a really average, basic life,
which is fine, but like,
it's fine. No, but that's the point. It's fine. It's just, and I don't think any of us think about that. And how often do we say, fine, oh, how are you? I'm fine. We don't think about, at the end of your life, sure, would you be happier saying, I had a terrible life or a fine life? Yes. But I don't think nobody wants to have a terrible life. And I don't think anyone's lying on their deathbed thinking, man, I had a fine life. It's just not, or my marriage was fine. That sounds fucking horrible.
Yeah.
I did fine financially. I did fine. My health was fine. Like, it just, fine is, we've almost been brainwashed to think fine is actually totally acceptable. And in reality, it's pretty unacceptable. And here's the reason why I would say it's unacceptable. You wouldn't want it for your kid. You just had a son.
Yep.
Not just, but like, he's a year old, and
two, bro.
2. Oh man. Dude, I've never met him. He's been, born during a pandemic time. But if you imagine that your son just had a fine life, right? Like things could be worse, but that's not what you want for your kid. And I don't think that's what anybody wants for their kid. So
No, it's
why
like
do we
it's
yeah,
heartbreaking to even think about it like that,
yeah.
you know?
But why is it okay for us to have it for ourselves?
Right. Yeah, the
Um,
martyr, right? Um, there's this palliative care nurse that's a nurse that supports people at end of life. And she took the top 5 themes that her patients would share about their lives that they wish that they had, a changeover, right? That they wish they could have done something more while they had the chance, while they're still living. Number one is they wish they had the courage to live true to themselves and not the lives that were expected of me. Second one is they wish they hadn't worked so hard. Third is they wish they had the courage to express their feelings. The fourth is they wish they had stayed in touch with their friends.
wow.
And the fifth one is they wish they would have let themselves be happier.
Wow. It's literally all the things that these are all the reasons why we actually basically decided to create this retreat, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
Different conversation. Yes.
oh my God, the thing that you said before the other thing that I wanted to come back to, the how we learned how to become men. I
Mhm.
want to be really clear. You and I don't know how to become men. We don't have the secret, it's not like this is like Morpheus, and Neo sitting here and we're Morpheus and we're like, here's the pill, you're going to be a man. Absolutely not. But I think we also recognize that's part of the problem inside of, especially inside of the male structure, is there's somebody out there telling you how you should be a man, how you
Yeah.
shouldn't be a man, how men are toxic, how men are weak, how men are patriarchal, how men are violent, how men are soft, right? I'm saying all the different things. And ultimately, what you and I really believe is you get to be a man however you want to be a man. Now, here's the catch that this is our job is to have you look at, is that working for you, right? So
Mhm.
if you're like this domineering, angry guy and that's who you want to be, then I'm nobody to tell you that you shouldn't be like that. But when you have cancer and you're unhappy and you have no connections and you're miserable, well, you shouldn't be all that surprised. You were domineering and you were an asshole. So if the men that we really are talking to are men that are going, that I think we're like you and I, right? I call myself a recovering asshole for a reason,
Mhm.
right? I recognize I was an asshole and there wasn't anything specifically wrong with it, except I got to a point where I was like, wow, this isn't working for me. I'm unhappy. I'm not satisfied. I'm working too hard. I'm taking my feelings essentially only out as like a jerk basically on people. I'm taking advantage of people and using them for my selfish needs. And realizing, wow, at the end of my days, I'm going to be like one of these people that you just talked about, where I'm going to be on my deathbed going, I wish I had had better relationships and better connections. I
Yeah.
wish I had been like more generous and nicer. I wish I wasn't so bitter and I had more fun. So I think it's so important that it's people understand it's not, whether it be about what we're doing, we're not telling anybody how to be men, and we're not on here as a podcast telling people how they should be men. We want people to realize, like, is the way you're being a man working for you? Is it working for your family? Is it working for your kids, whether you have them or will have them? Is it working for your business? I know men, and I do too, that are like their way they are as men is like not confident, or maybe they're arrogant. So then there are people that work for them are like, fuck this guy.
Mhm.
So it's not working in their business. Is it working? Which I think you and I ask a lot. Is it working for who we want to be in the world?
Right.
If you don't like the way the world looks, well, then it's up to you to actually be different, right? We're not saying you have to go change everything, but if you don't actually act in a way that you want the world to look, then stop complaining about the way the world looks. You're part of the breakdown that's causing it to be the way that it is.
Yeah. Yeah, by sitting idly by, right?
Well, and participating, right, in it. If you're a jerk,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're participating in why everybody's treating them is each other like jerks.
Yeah. I think I mean certainly my own journey, like I didn't know that. It's like I didn't know what I didn't know, for one. And like I didn't actually know how unfulfilled I was in my life because I was going off of all the things I learned and what was supposed to make me happy and feel successful and feel fulfilled. And I remember when I got to the point to where I achieved like the height in my corporate career I wanted to achieve. I finally got this this director position, and I was getting groomed for the VP position, and I was like, jumping right into the C-suite. And I remember when I finally got the promotion, I was like a few days later, and I was like, oh man, is this all there is? And I didn't know what other conversations were available to me at that time. I was just like, oh, I just got to work harder. Uh, you know, I
Yeah,
just got to
for
get a
what?
hotter girlfriend or buy a cooler car. Like that's where,
Hmm.
and my girlfriend was really hot at the time, but like there was there was like all this. I just went right back into the same
Yeah, yeah.
matrix, right? Like this is what I need to do more. And like I had this moment of realization is like, I don't know where to turn next. And I think like with the absence of powerful male mentors, role models, coaches in a young man's life, like they don't know where to turn. They don't know what other questions they can ask or who or how they can challenge themselves and who they get to be or even dare to dream what's actually possible. And those are vulnerable, scary conversations to be in that again we're taught not to be in, right? Because that's weakness. And I think it's we're doing where I don't know who we are, society, other men, like we're doing a huge disservice to our boys by not um bringing different conversations to them like the ones that we're going to be bringing in the Alchemy of Men retreat.
um, you made me think about how I don't know. I mean, I was doing pretty well in the hospitality business. I was 30 years old or 32 years old, and I think I'd opened up over 15 restaurants, and I was a director of operations for a multi-million-dollar restaurant group. Um, but I was like every day coming home from work being like, fuck this. I hate my fucking job. And there were moments that I liked, right? There were moments with humans that I liked interacting with,
Hmm.
and there were things, but for the most part, I was like annoyed and frustrated. It seemed
Yeah.
like there were always more problems. I could never get out of that. And and for a long time, the answer like yours was, well, I'm gonna drink.
Hmm.
I'm gonna drink to essentially like check out and like have fun, or I'm gonna go try to sleep with a hotter girl to make me feel good about myself. But then I was like, wow, I'm kind of a piece of shit because I'm like using this person. And then, and if I got the hotter girl, if I was like with them, then it was like, oh, that lasted. It's like almost like a drug, right? It was great until it wore off. And then I was like, well, this is just normal now. So now you need like more of that drug. And and I think like my dad was there, and it wasn't like my dad didn't know how to teach me how to be a man. But I think like generationally, like my dad's dad wasn't there as a strong dad. He was an alcoholic. He gambled. He was violent.
Yeah.
Well, so then my dad learned from that. And then
Hmm.
while my dad was way better than that, like way better, he still didn't have like he made it up as he went along. And I think, right. And no one ever checked him. Nobody ever was like, hey, is this working for you? Are you happy? Are you happy to work as hard as you're working and be like so stressed out and exhausted and like literally like burning the candle at both ends? Um, and something I've noticed lately is like when we have conversations and a few other men in my life, no one actually takes the conversation to that next level.
Hmm.
So if it were me, let's say I were my dad in that situation and I were with someone like you, it's like he's saying something like, oh man, I'm like so frustrated with my business, or I'm like tired. I'm like working all the fucking time. I'm working so hard. I can't seem to get ahead. And I think typically male conversation, like what would a typical male conversation, like if you're my friend, what do you say back to me?
Yeah, you're like, well, you just got to work harder,
Yeah.
or quit being such a pussy.
Or let's get a drink.
Yeah,
Fuck,
suck
let's
it
get a
up.
fucking drink.
Or
Like,
yeah, man, it's all gonna work out. Let's go grab some drinks. Hey, let's go catch the game. Like it's
yeah.
like shove it down, push it away, don't be
Hmm.
with it. Yeah.
Yep. And I think, and then okay, let's flip it and say like now in our conversation, like what would you say to me? I'm saying that. How would you take that deeper? How is my friend being conscious? How would you take that conversation to a deeper level?
I mean, I'd get like way more curious. I'd be like, what's that experience like for you? What are you feeling? What's coming up? I'd just be getting more curious. I would try to get into him.
Yeah.
Sounds weird, but get into his way of like his view, to really understand what's going on and see, what's the support he actually needs. And then that might be a question to ask him. Like, well, what do you need, man? What do you need?
Yeah, and I think like even as friends, right? Not as it's not like as you have to be a coach to do this. I was sitting with a guy that I know a really good guy that I know the other day, and we were having dinner, and he's from another country, and I was asking him about his childhood. And he was like telling me about it, how like his experience, and he basically lived in like a one studio apartment with his whole family until he was like 16 years old. And it wasn't like some amazing studio apartment, right? This was like, and he's sharing this experience with me, and then he's sharing with me his dad's experience of trying to make money and getting them out of that situation. I was like, were you mad at your dad, right, that he put you in that situation? And how's your guys' relationship now? And we kind of went down that road, and we talked about him, building a business with his dad now. And at the end of the conversation, both of us were like, man, it's so like I felt like I knew him, like I could see
Yeah.
him. And I also, on the other side, it also made me feel really, really grateful for my dad, and really lucky that like the privilege that I had, that I didn't actually have that experience. Like I never thought about, because we don't go that deep. So we're like, oh, that person had it rough. That sucks.
Hmm.
But we don't usually get to that level of empathy where we're like, oh my God, I don't know if I would have, who would I be if I had to grow up like that?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think it just really, I don't know if the word is robs, but you just don't get that like experience of being like human. Like you have a whole range of emotion, a whole spectrum of feelings. And there's so much that gets tampered down or pushed down that it just like robs you of like having a normal experience where like, then it's like it's wrong that you're feeling this way, or why are you feeling this way, or suck it up, man, work harder, like whatever it is. Like I started to internalize that experience on myself, like there must be something wrong with me, or I'm weak, I must be soft, or and that thought is what also isolated me from other men. Like it was more uncomfortable to be in a room full of men than a room full of women for me, like
Mm.
gorgeous women, like
It's funny because I didn't feel, it wasn't like from a lack of, I avoided men often. So aside from maybe looking for girls and
Mhm.
drinking and playing video games or watching sports, I would essentially avoid men because like I was over the same conversation a million times. How many times are we going to talk about the thing that played on ESPN 740 times that you watched on repeat?
Yeah, yeah,
How
yeah.
many times are we going to talk about how much we like don't like our job, or how we should make more money, or a type of car? There's nothing wrong with ESPN or sports or cars, but it's funny how ESPN, for not so much anymore, there's a lot more, but you remember ESPN used to play just on like on a loop. They did like they did
Yeah,
a morning
yeah.
and a night, and then it would just play on a loop.
Yep.
I feel like that's how my conversations often with men were in life, just this like loop of, what girl are you chasing after? Like, how are you going to get her? How are you going to try to make more money, or complain about your situation? Let's talk about sports and argue about something that we have no control over and makes no difference in our own life.
Yep.
And so I actually would avoid men because I just like actually didn't know how to take the conversation further. I think I was afraid, right? To men to be like, you're like a pussy, or
Mhm.
that's gay, or whatever, right? Dudes would say. I think so. I think there was fear, but I also just didn't know how. I didn't know how to ask the right questions to go further. Where with women, that's just part of what they do, right? They're just doing that all the time. So if you're with them and you're willing, they'll ask you the question, and you get to like share and open up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember, like, in the groups I would, like, hang with, like, I was like, "Bob was such a great guy. God, he's so open and honest and vulnerable. He'll share." I was like this, this, like, unicorn, like, this magical man. I was like, "No, this is actually just way more comfortable talking
Yeah.
about this stuff than, being like I said, a room full of guys, like, trying to have a conversation about sports." It's like, it just didn't work for me. And I think, one of the big kind of turnarounds for me was at actually, and this is another thing I think that happens too, is like men are unwilling to change unless something dramatic and drastic and tragic happens. That they will not, they will only then get into a new conversation about their lives and about who they get to be as men. And for me, that was hitting my utter bottom, getting fired from my job for my drug and alcohol use. And, my career at that point had been every single thing I put all of who I am into. And here it was, ripped from me based on my actions and my behavior. And the thing that happened in that process for me was I actually started having real conversations. Actually started having conversations that matter, and that required a level of honesty and vulnerability that I had never stepped into before. But like I had to now because that was the only way I was going to get better. It was the only way I was going to start my healing journey. It was the only way I was going to stay sober. And it was, I think about, man, if someone taught me how to like actually share what was going on with me, if someone taught me how to be honest and be vulnerable before that happened, I probably wouldn't have gotten as sick and as addicted to drugs and alcohol that I did.
Yeah. Wow. I th- I wrote, when I wrote my book, Fictional Authenticity, one of the things I talked about is I felt really lucky that I got to choose it. Like nothing bad happened.
Mm,
That I totally could see that in life doesn't allow us to just stay still and stuck and comfortable, whether it's good or bad or otherwise. It's there's constantly showing us doors. And I think sometimes, and a lot of times, you and I interact with men we offer them a door. Nothing bad's happened, right? Everything's fine. Their job is fine. Their relationship's fine. Maybe there's a guy that I know who's like, it's not that bad. That's literally his response to his life currently, is it's not that bad.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's not for me to be like, boy, when you find out something bad happens and you're going to want to change, you don't get all that time back. But I think that, like, I felt really lucky that I just had a moment where I went, oh my God, my life isn't working for me. I got to change it. I got to do something.
Yeah.
But I do think that if I hadn't taken that door when it was there, I probably would have like hit somebody with my car drinking and driving. I probably would have gotten married and like cheated and blown up my family, maybe
Hmm.
really damaged some kids. Maybe I don't know, maybe I would have gotten fired from a job for like sleeping with the wrong person I shouldn't have slept with. Maybe I would have got like a harassment claim. All these decisions I was making, right, where
Yeah.
they hadn't created a problem yet, but I think that at some point they
They were
would
coming.
have.
Oh
I
yeah.
luck, right? I changed something before that. And I think that, the men that we work with are conscious of this. I want to take this right to like the female conversation too, because you and I have been talking to a lot of women lately who either through our partners or just through our worlds that are like wishing their men would say yes to a different possibility or a
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah. 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 I was like blown away by it. When we started talking about doing this retreat, like I just had the realization this morning. I was like, man, I've heard from more women about this thing than I've heard from men. And when I think about like the men that I do end up working with, um, the difference or the thing that's actually available to them is that they're like a yes to a new experience, and whatever got them there, great, but they got there, right? And they're convinced or they're present to like, man, I could be a better business owner. I could make, more money from an empowered place. I could be a better leader, a better father, a better husband, and I'm committed to doing that, right? And there's other guys I talk to and they're just like, yeah, but I'm like, listen, bro, like I shouldn't have to convince you that you can have an extraordinary life. I'm not trying to sell you that. You should fucking want that. You should want to be the best version of you for your relationships, for your career, your impact. Like, I'm not here to fucking sell you that. I'm here to like show you a way to get there. And like, why does everyone else that you love around you want that for you? And you're over here like, yeah, but it's like, if you could sense some of the energy in it, it's like, it's just heartbreaking, man. It's like, just say yes to
Really
you.
depressing.
Yeah. Say yes to you one time. See what happens. Yeah.
I was just in New York, and Evan and I were in New York for a wedding, and then Evan has a lot of clients that are women that some she's met, some she's never met, that were in New York City. And so they did a dinner. And so Evan went and did this dinner with all her clients, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have like a my man night. I'm gonna go eat like a bunch of meat and greasy food and drink a bunch of whiskey. And so, she went and did her very like important business thing, and I went and found a really good restaurant and did that.
Yep.
And at the end, we were gonna, she was gonna leave, and we were gonna meet up, and she's like, you should come. I would love for these, they all know our story. They followed on social media. You should come meet up with these. So I'm like, okay. And now I've had a decent amount of drinks, and we should even preface this. Like, I have a very clear and intentional relationship with alcohol. It's like very on purpose now. I know I'm not driving, right? I'm like, hey, it's almost like I don't want to relate it to like plant medicine, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to have this experience just like I'm going to go on a roller coaster or I'm going to watch a movie. Like, this is my experience of the night that I'm choosing from an empowered place. And I'm not going to make any decisions based on it that are going to sabotage or screw up my life. Right. So I go and I'm feeling really good and I'm very loose. And I walk into this room full of all of these women. And I wasn't expecting to actually get into some deep conversations. I thought I was going to show up, say hi, meet everyone, and me and Evan would bounce and leave. And they so wanted to talk to me about their men and why they spend time like working on themselves, developing themselves, improving themselves. And that like they love their men. They're not saying that they need to or there's anything wrong. But the things that they shared were, this woman shared with me that he like broke down in tears with her, and he would never do this with anyone else, that he's like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I should have more money. I should have bought like more properties. I should be more successful. And she's sharing this with me and telling me about how like, this is like a tough New York City, like a real East Coast dude. And he's like doing this in private. And I was like, do you know how emasculating it is for him to feel like that? I've been there, like, I'm not good enough. I haven't made enough. I can't provide for you. I can't. And like, that was one. There was another where this one was like, he just doesn't take care of himself. It's just like work. So he like doesn't feel good. He's not happy with the way he looks like in his body. He never is like getting enough money because that bar, that like the end zone keeps moving the closer he gets to it. There were other ones that shared like the men don't know how to talk, not like literally know how to talk, but the men will come home from work and they just like want to put on the TV or want to put on sports, and they don't know how to share like how their day was. They don't know how to answer questions, and the women just feel like they're kind of like in a relationship with like this guy they fell in love with, who they love, but is almost like the shell of who he really is. And they know that who he really is in there, but like, it just doesn't know how to come out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude, I had like 5 of those conversations last week, with like women or couples. And it's like, it's such a stereotypical like dude who's just like unfulfilled, bored, resentful, angry, probably sad. Right. And it's like, dude, multiply that by another year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Like, is this the life that you want to live? Like, whatever you're waiting for to happen outside of you to fix all this isn't coming. It's an inside job, man. And it's like, I think it's just the settling of it, right? Which is like heartbreaking, or like the better word's tolerating it. What has you tolerate that, man?
Yeah.
Like, this is why we've got, men addicted to crap. We got men like, can't put down a video game controller, addicted to porn, drinking, doing drugs too much, cheating on their wives. Like, this is why. This is why they're numbing out and checking out, because they can't be with how fucking miserable they are and unwilling to change.
I think something too that's important is like, you don't have to give up those things. Right. We have to change our relationship. So if you're a man and you're listening to this, or you're someone who wants to share this with men, it's like, he doesn't have to stop playing video games. Like I just shared, you don't even have to stop drinking or doing drugs
or watching porn.
but but you get to decide from a new place of, is this working for me? Right? That the way I used to deal with alcohol was actually not working for me. It was very irresponsible. It was on the cusp of causing a lot of damage to myself and others. The way I used to be with women was fun, but it was on the cusp of causing problems in my life. And potentially as my life got, as I got a family, it would be even more. And I think the same goes for like, I think that in a lot of ways, men think there's this fear that they're going to have to like give something up.
Yeah.
And what I really would love for men to see is like, you can have all of it. And that's actually what we want for you. Like when a man comes to me and he shares with me how he's miserable or upset or tired, or doesn't have, he's burned out, he's not connecting with his family. And he's like, but I make all this money and I've worked so hard to get here. And I'm like, we don't need to take $1 away from you. The thing is, it's kind of like you're driving a car with like that has 4 tires, but like only 1 tire is like actually full of air. It's working so hard, it's dragging the other 3 tires around, but it's creating sparks and flames, and there's the rubber's melting on the road and leaving tracks. That tire is going to stay exactly the way it is. But the thing is, when the other 3 tires get empowered, your health, your family, your communication, your emotions, your spirituality, that first tire has to use so much less energy, and the whole car gets to go faster. And I find that that's the surprising thing that happens with men that work with us, is they're so afraid of the thing they're going to have to give up, which
Right.
has them neglect all the other and tolerate all the other areas, when that thing will become supercharged when they actually give attention to those other areas.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think in any new way of being, new choice, new commitment, I think the standard thing is to focus on what you're going to lose from it. Like, what's going to be taken away from me if I open up more vulnerably, if I share, or if I take care of myself in a better way. Like, and we get to actually, and I flip it like, well, what is there to actually gain? What's there to gain if you were able to open up more vulnerably to other men in your life, share what's actually going on, share with your partner who's like begging for some freaking intimacy with you. um what's actually available, if you start taking better care of your physical, emotional, and spiritual health. Like, what's available to you, right? Who do you get to be as a man, as a leader, as a partner, as a father? Like, the version of you that's available to you is on the other side of that, right? Is on the other side of focusing on what you're going to gain versus what you're going to lose. There's a consequence to every choice. And does that consequence support the experience of life that you actually want? Or is it more of the same? And I think Alex and I, have created this retreat to be in a different conversation about all of this, about what it means to be a man, about what you actually want in your life, getting responsible for what's in the way, where you're contributing to the breakdowns in your life that are actually preventing you from the experience that you want. And you're creating an experience of not being alone in this. I think so many of us suffer from lone wolf syndrome, where it's easier to go alone versus go together. And what's that saying? Like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go farther, go together. And it's so apropos. The brotherhood that's going to get created from this experience, and it's already getting created, is just extraordinary.
Yeah, I think too, the way we're playing with this, we can wrap up this conversation.
Yeah.
Was really spawned out of, there's a lot of men who would never go on a men's retreat. There's a lot of men who would never go to a men's circle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of men that would never go like do a lot of these things, but they do want connection with other men. They do want like better friendships. They do want deeper. Maybe they don't need new friendships, but they want to go deeper with the men in their lives, whether they be their friends or their dads or their uncles or their cousins. And we're like all these things we talked about: the fulfillment, the joy, the lack of stress, the peace, the ease. They're like having a life that you really like living and you enjoy living, and you're not settling or saying or calling fine or tolerating. A lot of what we're doing here, I've said this a lot. I don't know if I've said this to you, is there's a joke that's, I'm kind of like, this is the retreat for men who wouldn't normally go on a men's retreat.
Totally.
And
Totally.
And one of the things that you and I are really doing is like calling each other out in different ways of like, well, why are we doing that? Or why would we do that? Or why can't we do that? And also looking at the cheesiness or the contrivedness of some of the things we see. We're not, again, there's nothing, we're not judging anyone else. We're not saying any of the things from the things people are doing to not doing are bad or good. But what we just notice is there's not one way. There's a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And we're creating something here that's a new and different way. And if you want to go on that journey with us, or you're not sure and you're curious, we'll give you our time absolutely for free with no strings attached to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
That is, I know that's something you're committed to and something I'm committed to. Often people are like, but a coach is so much money, or this retreat is so much money. Well, I'm saying it right here. It's being recorded. We will talk to you for free without, and even if you said to us, I'm not coming on your retreat and I'm not going to hire you, we'll still talk to you for free.
Yeah.
Because we think
you might hear one thing that changes your life.
Yeah. And somebody did it for us.
Yep.
And we're here now, not because somebody took our money, but because somebody was willing to have a conversation with us in a way that no one ever had before.
Yep.
Is there anything you want to say before we wrap this episode up?
No, man, it's good chatting. We should do this more often. And like Alex said, like invitation's open, brother. All you gotta do is, reach your hand out. We'll reach right back out and keep a conversation that matters going.
You do love holding hands with men. I've noticed that about you.
Yeah. That's part of the retreat. We hold hands the entire time. We actually handcuff you to another participant. Yeah. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. It might be a cool idea though. There's probably lots of breakthroughs in that.
I'm like, who's signing up right now because of that? They're like, I want that. If you're interested or curious, you can go to the DreamMason.com/alchemy of men. You can also, Bob, what's your website?
Conlincoaching.com, CONLIN coaching.com.
You can go there to find more about Bob. What's your email? What's your Instagram and your email?
Instagram is at relationship_alchemist. And my email is bob@conlincoaching.com.
And I am Alex at thedreammason.com, at inspirational Alex on Instagram. And we're here. We're happy to have the conversation. If you're listening to this and this is so not for you, maybe there's somebody that it is for.
Totally. Pass it on, please.
Yeah. Pass it on, share. Even if it's only a moment or a segment that we talked about, we're grateful for you listening. Thanks for being here. Bob, thanks for being here on the DreamMason podcast for probably the third or fourth time. Dude, I'm so psyched about this. I'm so psyched to just keep doing this work. I avoided doing coding men's work for a really long time. And it's funny, the thing I avoided is the thing I'm like having so much fun doing.
Totally, dude. I made a declaration 6 years ago that I'll be a force in this space. And I spent the last 5 years resisting the hell out of it because I was terrified. And here we are making it happen. I fucking love it.
Thanks for listening, everybody. This is another episode of the DreamMason Podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time.